Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Harrison, Chief of Staff at Murdoch University, but also a member of the State Advisory Council for CEDA in Western Australia. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be hosting this session, CEDA online conversation this afternoon with the Leader of the Opposition, Liza Harvey. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge and ask that we all reflect on the fact today and every day we are on Aboriginal land. On all our behalf, I celebrate and honour elders past, present and emerging. Like many through the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, CEDA's program of discussion forums moved to an online platform. Like many businesses, we've found new ways of connecting and engaging. And as we slowly return to business as usual, CEDA will return to face-to-face events, but will continue a robust program of live stream discussions to allow people from all corners of the country to participate, just like each of you are doing today. So thank you again for joining us. To keep abreast of the range of events and discussions on the most important issues impacting Australia's economic and social development, we at CEDA encourage you to visit the website ceda.com.au, where you can keep up to date and get the latest information. The CEDA team are doing terrific work, so be sure to utilise that information as members. Today, like at all CEDA public events, you'll still be able to interact with our speaker through our Q&A portal, and I do encourage you to engage in the conversation today. It's a unique opportunity to have the Leader of the Opposition join us and be able to take your questions. So you will be able to access that Pigeonhole link you'll see on your screen if the technology is working properly, or if you can't see it, you can enter in the details by going to ceda.pigeonhole.at, and our passcode today is WA election, all one word. And as at all CEDA events, you can join in the social media conversation on Twitter using the hashtag WAPOL, WAPOL, and tagging CEDA at CEDA_news. So housekeeping's out of the way, and I did promise Liza Harvey, our speaker, I was going to keep my remarks and introductory remarks to a bare minimum, because we're all here to hear from her and her ideas, because we're 120 days out from the next state election, and I'm sure Ms. Harvey doesn't need any reminder of that it's fast approaching. But I was also reflecting that, the role of the Leader of the Opposition is considered probably one of the hardest roles in politics. Then you throw in a global pandemic into the mix, and I think the task of opposition, not just in WA, but all around the country and probably all around the world, have been made that even more harder. So having the chance to hear from Liza about what her thoughts are for the future and going into that election is a special opportunity. So I'd now like to hand over to our keynote speaker today, the Honourable Liza Harvey, WA Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, David, and a big thanks to you and to CEDA for the opportunity to address your membership today. I do really appreciate it. And I will start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And I would also note how thrilled I was to see that Australia's very first Indigenous woman to achieve a degree in psychiatry has become our Western Australian of the Year in Helen Milroy. Just fantastic. And we also saw Richard Wally, another outstanding senior person from the Noongar community, who received the Western Australian Senior of the Year award last night. So really fantastic. I just wanted to include that as part of my acknowledgement, because those two, in fact, all of the four award winners were fantastic, but it's great to see Helen Milroy take out that accolade that's so well deserved. 2020 has been a really difficult year. We all know that. We head towards 2021 facing very uncertain times. Many businesses are on the brink of ruin. We're looking at skyrocketing unemployment as we head towards the new year. There's many families in upheaval, families that have been separated for long periods of time, many mental health issues being experienced by people right across the breadth of this great state. And we're very conscious of the fact that before COVID-19 hit, in Western Australia, we did actually have some concerning data with respect to our domestic economy and unemployment. Our unemployment rate was higher than every other state at that point in time, and there were businesses that were closing their doors as a result of a downturn in the retail sector and a poor outlook with respect to business certainty. When we have a look to the COVID-19, the outcome of that has been quite mixed within the various different sectors within our business community. So as we head towards the 2021 election, we've been very focused on pulling together a 5-year COVID-19 economic plan. Obviously, the private sector need to lead the economic recovery post-COVID, and the government of the day needs to facilitate that by looking at ways to ensure that private sector investment can commence without unnecessary impediment, and that private sector investment can create the jobs for the economy and find those new niche industries that we need if we're going to create employment to cover for those segments of the economy that we've lost, such as, for example, international students at the moment and also tourism. Our policy is policies around putting jobs first for Western Australians. One of the first policies we announced was our local jobs guarantee, and if elected, we will appoint a local jobs commissioner who will be funded to hold government agencies to account to ensure that the government infrastructure projects and all government projects look to Western Australian-based companies first, with Western Australian-based companies being given a weighted average in tendering for government work. Now, this doesn't mean that Western Australian companies can jack their prices up and be guaranteed of that work. It means that they will get a weighted average in the tendering process and the procurement process if they're within a 125-kilometre radius of where the project is going to commence, and that weighted average will assist Western Australian companies in developing further and building capacity. Now, the local jobs commissioner's role will be to hold the government agencies to account. Obviously, there are things we need to purchase overseas. For example, tunnel borers. Will require government agencies to report when they've had to procure from offshore, and to also account for why a Western Australian company that could do the work was not part of the procurement or not part of the successful tendering process. We are unashamedly bringing that in to support the Western Australian businesses. There are 75,000 small businesses out there that we are looking to provide some optimism and some relief for, and our local jobs first guarantee is part of that commitment. The other commitment that we have is looking at cost of living, both for small businesses and for householders. Now, since the government's been in, the annual basket of goods has gone up by $850 on average per household. That means over the next 5 years, every household will have to find $4,250 extra just to keep the lights on, just to keep the water running. So we're looking at ways to reduce cost of living, and that's where we've come up with our cheaper power plan. Now, what we will do within the first 100 days of being elected is we'll reduce the synergy, the artificial cap for small businesses who currently, any business that has under 50 megawatt hertz of electricity usage, any business over 50 megawatt hours of energy usage is able to take advantage of a competitive market. So what we will do is we will drop that limit from 50 to 20 megawatt hours, so that small businesses, 75,000 of them who sit within that range, will be able to go to the market and find another energy provider other than Synergy if they can get that power cheaper. The next phase of it will be to open up the retail market to energy contestability, so that our householders will be able to purchase electricity from a preferred provider, similar to gas. You know, when the gas market was deregulated, as a result of that, now every single consumer of gas has choice of many different providers, with some householders being able to achieve up to 45% discounts on their gas bill. We want that to be available for electricity users, and we'll do that by opening up the market to competition. Now, our Labor opponents are saying that this is the first step towards privatising Synergy and privatising our energy assets. That's not the case. I have given a no asset sale guarantee where we will not be privatising or selling any energy assets. Synergy, Western Power, Horizon Power will remain in government hands. And to ensure that consumers don't get stung by unfair contracts around the retail contestability for energy, we'll put a cap on the maximum price that energy retailers can charge, which will be the regulated price set by the Minister for Synergy. The regulated price that Synergy can charge its customers will be the maximum. So this will be a good deal for consumers, a good deal for small businesses, and it will help bring down the cost of living for every Western Australian business and every Western Australian household. Now, the opposition that we get from Labor with respect to this is around with respect to Synergy. We know Synergy has been slow to innovate. Synergy has been slow to find savings. Synergy has been slow to achieve efficiency. And it's a union-dominated workforce at Synergy. That union-dominated workforce have got incredible work practices where we're seeing some employees of Synergy earning upwards of double their salary in overtime rates. That doesn't happen in the private sector because they manage their workforce more efficiently. And that is a significant cost that Synergy and therefore the taxpayers bear. So we believe in bringing other energy providers into the energy sector that will force Synergy to have a look at ways to find efficiencies and to provide even cheaper power than it does at the present time. We are the second highest priced electricity market in Australia at this point in time, and that needs to improve. We also have announced a policy recently around retail trading hours, and that was part of our staged deregulation agenda that started under the Barnett government. What that will allow is for shops to open from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on a Sunday, which is currently the case on Saturdays and every other day of the week. We believe that that's going to be something that consumers will respond to, and in fact, in announcing that policy, I had a senior lady in a walking frame congratulate me on it because she said every Sunday she does her shopping, she has to queue up at 11 o'clock, she can't get a disabled access bay, she doesn't like queuing because she doesn't feel safe, and she feels quite confident that if she gets out of bed at 8 o'clock to go shopping on a Sunday that she won't have much competition to get that disability access space. So we believe that's a good opportunity for consumers. And we've also called on the government to increase the extended trading hours around Christmas from 36 hours to 50 hours. And if we're elected, we will do that, particularly in the era of COVID. What we don't want is people rushing around, cramming into shopping centres to try and get their Christmas shopping done. If we provide some additional hours for retail trading over Christmas time, that will give people an opportunity to shop more safely. And I think, safety and the keeping people safe and keeping us healthy is the top priority of every individual in Western Australia as an outcome of COVID. The other thing that we will change, with going back to our local jobs commitment, I don't know if many of your CEDA members would be aware, but when the government came in, they made a promise to bring in the Local Jobs Act. And the Local Jobs Act actually defines local as being anywhere in any state or territory of Australia and New Zealand. So Labor's Local Job Act actually defines local as being Toowoomba, it could be Sydney, it could be Christchurch in New Zealand. Our Local Jobs Act will be quite specific around defining local businesses as businesses that are actually warehoused here in Western Australia and, businesses that keep the profits here in WA. Our second, we made another two commitments around business, which I think the CEDA members would be interested to hear. Under our faster payments for small business system, we have made a commitment that any small to medium businesses that do business with government will get a faster payments paradigm. At the moment, small businesses that do business with government, sometimes they're not getting paid. The commitment is to get paid within 20 days, but the reality is they get paid in 60 or 90 days, which has a significant impact on their cash flow. Now, that might just be your Jim's Mowing, who are doing the gardening for some of our government agencies. They're sometimes waiting 60 to 90 days to get paid. So under our faster payments guarantee, we'll ensure every invoice up to $10,000 will be paid on the date of invoice once it's been verified, and any invoice up to $1 million will be paid within 5 days. And we believe that that will be a significant boost and benefit to all of those businesses. It will assist them with cash flow, allow them to pay their contractors and allow them to get started on the next job, if you like, because the cash is flowing through their businesses more in a faster fashion. So that was one of the first commitments for business that we made. And the next one, we had our local jobs guarantee, and we've got our energy contestability policy, and then we also have our 20,000 apprenticeship and traineeship plan. Now, anybody who's taken on an apprentice or a trainee knows that for pretty much the first half of the program, they do cost businesses money because they need a full-timer to be training them on the job. Productivity isn't always the best out of your 1 to 2 year apprentices and trainees. So our commitment is to support businesses in taking on those apprentices and trainees. And what we've committed to is a $10,000 grant for apprentices, 50% upfront, 50% at the midway point of the apprenticeship, and a $5,000 grant for trainees, which is 50% upfront, 50% at the midway point of the training program. And that will support businesses to maintain that relationship with the apprentices and trainees, but also give them a further incentive to take them on in the first place, because we are heading down a fairly catastrophic skill shortage pipeline if we don't start to address that training deficit that we have at present. That program also comes with a $1,000 tools grant. Everyone knows apprentices and trainees need tools of trade to start work. It might be, if you're a chef, knives, for instance, or it might be steel cap boots, but it could also, our $1,000 tools grant can also be used for things like police clearances and medical clearances and, other issues that need to be addressed in order for an apprentice or a trainee to actually start work on the tools. So that $1,000 tools bonus is part of our agenda as well. Now, we've also committed to get the economy moving to build Row 8 and Row 9. We are the only party that will build Row 8 and Row 9. The Labor Party have currently got legislation in the Parliament to remove the road reservation forever. And if that happens, that road will never get built. Now, we believe that road needs to be built. For starters, it's an economic stimulus. It will create 10,000 direct and indirect jobs in the making of it. But it will also improve efficiency for every commuter in the South Metro area because they have a 20% longer commute time than any other commuter. It'll improve road safety because it will stop that conflict between trucks and small cars on Leach Highway, and those 20 sets of traffic lights that trucks and vehicles currently have to stop at to get from the freeway to Stock Road will be reduced. So that improves fuel efficiency, it reduces our carbon footprint, it improves the freight efficiency. It'll get the freight vehicles from Kwinana Freeway to the port faster. It's not going to increase the volume of freight. It just gets it there faster. Part of that commitment is also a $50 million commitment to improve and upgrade the Belia wetlands. The Belia Regional Park was actually used as for horticulture and farming. So there's a lot of noxious weeds in there. There's a lot of feral animals. The $50 million portion of the Row 8, Row 9 expenditure will go to put in a series of boardwalks, bird watching platforms. We'll have a Noongar interpretive centre there, hopefully Noongar rangers to have tours to show people the beauty and to explain to people the history of the Noongar traditions for the Belia Regional Park. So that will be part of our program with respect to Row 8 and Row 9 if we get in. Now, we will be making announcements around a range of other portfolios. I'll touch on health because we have made announcements in health. And I'm really pleased with our commitment to rebuild King Eddie Memorial Hospital. Now, King Eddie's do a fantastic job. They deliver 6,000 babies every year, but they are the oldest hospital in the state. The nursing staff there, the medical staff, and also the patients get outstanding outcomes that are not really in spite of the work environment that they have to contend with. So If elected, we will build that hospital. We will build it on the QE2 medical precinct site, and we will also fund a $60 million maternal and babies research foundation. Now, I'm not quite sure if many of the CEDA members would understand some of the amazing breakthrough research projects that have come out of King Eddie's Memorial Hospital, but one which the Western Australian of the Year last year, John Newnham, was recognised for, is a research project that has identified that preterm delivery in many cases is linked to a particular form of bacteria. So for women at risk of preterm delivery, we can administer broad-spectrum antibiotics and prevent preterm delivery. You know, preterm delivery costs the health budget billions of dollars every year because babies that are born prematurely need a lot of support. They often have ongoing issues with their sight, with their hearing, with their breathing, and with cognitive function. And if we can prevent preterm delivery, we will make a multi-billion-dollar difference, not only to the health budget, but also to improving the lives of so many babies and so many women. So King Eddie's is a big key part of our health commitment, and you know that is a policy that will benefit women and children right across Western Australia, because every problem pregnancy in regional Western Australia comes to King Edward Memorial Hospital for support and care if they need it. We will be announcing further policies as we go on, but I would like to get to Q&A. We are unashamedly pro-business and pro-development, and you will see our policies will be around government reducing regulation, government getting out of the way and enabling the private sector to lead us in a COVID-19 economic recovery. Now, the government can only lead an economic recovery by spending more taxpayers' money, and they can only do that by taxing people more or borrowing money. So what we need to do is facilitate private sector-led investment in Western Australia and facilitate private sector development. And that's very much where we are pitching our election campaign over the next 120 days. So I hope that CEDA members will tune in to the Liberals' message as we head towards March 13 next year and support us going forward and support our policies. I think that's it in a rundown for me, David. So I'd like to go to Q&A if that's possible. I can't hear you.
And hopefully people can hear me now. So thank you, Liza, for those comments. It's set us on a good start for a good conversation, and we are getting some questions in from members, which is great. And I remind everyone on this session today to engage and use the Pigeonhole website to send your questions through. I'll remind you it's ceda.pigeonhole.at. So that's for your questions, and the passcode is WA election. We're also running a poll. So we invite everyone on the call to use your vote and vote wisely on this. So our poll question today is, what do you think should be the top priority to ensure WA's economic recovery? So you can vote in that poll through Pigeonhole, and we'll share the results at the end of the call. So we are getting some questions in, which is great. There's one question I'd like to start with first before going to others, and it goes to probably what has been one of the bigger issues of the week, and certainly one of the biggest political issues of the week, and that is around the treatment of women in politics. And we've seen examples at a federal level, but even at a state level in recent days around the representation of women in politics, how they're treated in the workplace, at Parliament houses. So, Liza, as a senior female politician in this state, what are your thoughts on that? Those stories that have emerged and been covered and broken this week?
Yeah, thanks for that question, David. It's been a terrible week with respect on many levels, both for Canberra and state politics, when we have a look at the claims that have been made and the allegations that have been made with respect to the treatment of women. And it is one of those things that I do feel quite strongly about. You know, we have school children visiting our parliament, and the behaviour that occurs in our parliament would not be allowed in any other workplace. You know, we should be able, as members of parliament, to get our point across Yes, you can get fired up, but you don't need to yell. You don't need to get personal. You don't need to be obnoxious, and you don't need to humiliate people. And that, sadly, is the reality of the environment we work in Parliament. Now, while members of Parliament are behaving like that, caught in the middle of them are all of the clerical staff for the Parliament, the Hansard recorders, and they have to sit there and in the middle of that toxic environment. And it really, we can do better. I think we can do better, and I think we should do better. And part of that is by being an example ourselves, but also we need to stand up and not tolerate that kind of behaviour. And just to elaborate on that a bit further, my daughter, a long time ago, she's 20 now, she came to a tour of Parliament with her friends from school. The whole class came. They were sitting in the public gallery. And so I'd arranged as a new member of Parliament to ask a Dorothy Dixer during question time. And when I got up, I was interjected on and yelled at and laughed at, and it was just terrible. Those students, 30 of them, wrote me letters saying, stand up to those bullies, Mrs. Harvey, and don't be bullied, and bullying's terrible. And they called it for what they saw, how they saw it. And what they saw was obnoxious behaviour. So I think we do need to improve it, and I think that kind of behaviour is what puts women off from even running for politics. And we actually need to be encouraging women to run, not put them off by poor behaviour.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to refer to some of the questions from the members on this call, and members and other people tuning in. If you want to talk more about that issue or other issues, you can guide the conversation. I'm simply the mediator between you and Liza on this. So if there's issues you want to spend more time on or less time on, you let us know. But some of the questions from members. So we have a question from Rob Whedon. He asks, education, tourism, travel and hospitality have been crippled by COVID-19. What is the opposition's plan to recover these highly important export and job stimulating segments?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rob. We're very worried about the tourism sector. It's basically our economy's taken a $4 billion hit during COVID-19. So what I would like to see is a more collaborative approach with the industry and with government to try and find a way to bring back some of those segments of our tourism sector in a safe way. Unfortunately, it's a difficult conversation to have with the community at the moment, because the community in Western Australia, they are so fearful and they just want to hide under the doona. They don't want to contemplate anyone coming in from other countries at this point in time. But the reality is we need to find a managed way, for example, to bring back international students. Now, I would have thought that we could bring them in, we can quarantine those students for 14 days, we can test them during that period of time. If they're COVID-free, release them into our campuses, and that will provide, for example, a tourism boost when they come here. They'll be spending in our retail sector, they'll be part of our education export market. But at the moment, there is very little work and no signals being given to the universities as to when they can commence their international student programs again. Now, Western Australia being COVID-free at this point in time, and also having such a managed approach to the community spread of COVID-19, we would be a very safe destination, I would think, and highly competitive when it comes to parents who want to send their kids to a place where they know they're going to get really strong management of the safety, the health safety of our community. So that, to me, is an opportunity that we should be looking to. I'm hopeful that when the borders come down tomorrow night, that we will start to see a little bit more intrastate travel, and that will assist with our hospitality and tourism sectors. But I see that that international student segment as being an opportunity for a managed, safe way to assist our tourism and hospitality economies, not to mention our education sector.
Colin asks, given the impact of COVID-19 on the national economy, should WA's special GST deal be reviewed to provide more funding to WA?
I think we're doing pretty well out of the GST deal, to be honest. I mean, we've also done very well out of iron ore and gold royalties over this period of time. We're the only state in Australia that has posted a budget surplus, and our surplus it's technically about $1.5 billion, but there's actually about another $1 billion worth of dividends that haven't been taken from our utilities. So we're actually $2.5 billion pretty much in surplus. So I don't think the argument for us changing the GST or trying to claw back more GST at this point in time is going to be well received by the other states who've all posted deficits as they've put stimulus into their economies around COVID-19.
The next couple of questions I'm going to share with you, Liza, are around diversification, I'll get that out, of the economy. So one member asked, what are your plans to diversify the WA economy, which is currently too reliant on mining and federal funding?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question, and it's a very exciting one for me. One of the policies that I'm working on that we're not quite ready to release yet is around pulling together an investment prospectus. We actually have an incredible amount of R&D, research and development going on here in Western Australia, including in the medical technology area. We've got a lot of research opportunities for the commercialisation of translational medicine, which I think the rest of the world don't know about. And we're a very good place to be commercialising intellectual property with respect to medical technology because we have good laws with respect to intellectual property theft. So that's an area that I think is key. And I know other states, I think it's Queensland and New South Wales, they're actually offering some of our companies here that are producing medical technology and medical prostheses and PPE and whatever. They're actually offering some of those businesses $20,000 per employee to change states and move their business over there. So we need to have a program here in Western Australia, and I'm just doing the figures on that at the moment, to ensure that we can compete with the East Coast and try and poach some of their businesses to come over here because we could be easily be like a centre of excellence with respect to medical research, translational medicine and commercial production of various different ranges of medical products.
Building on that topic, another person asks, what are the Liberals doing to lobby the federal government to award the submarines project to WA instead of South Australia? What advantages does WA have over South Australia for this work?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There is a lot of work being done by our federal colleagues with respect to the submarine program. There's two components to it. There's the shipbuilding component and then there's the servicing of the submarines, the full cycle docking. The disadvantage that we have at the moment is that the facility in South Australia, Osborne, has 700 skilled workers who are skilled in that full cycle docking and mid-cycle docking maintenance. So the issue that we have is really a skill shortage if we want to be competitive with Osborne. So that's my understanding is that that's where a lot of the work is being done between the federal members of parliament and this state government. It's getting a proper plan in for Henderson, which is the logical place for this work to occur. At the moment, Henderson is a parking and congestion debacle. We need, road and infrastructure upgrades if we're going to create more industry there. We need to address the skill shortage, and we need to have a proper plan for Henderson so that the federal government can see that there is actually a space for that full cycle docking to occur in that footprint. So there's work being done. I don't think we should rush this program. I think I'm comfortable with the way that it's running. I think what we don't want is for it to become a political issue around an election because what we want is the best result for Western Australia and the best result for taxpayers. And once you throw a big program like that into the heated environment of an election, you end up with adverse outcomes and decisions being made on the hop. So, it's a long-term program. It's a 30-year servicing contract. I think if we wait for another 6 months to get it right, it's probably going to be okay.
Keep your questions coming through the Pigeonhole site, and also keep voting in our poll. I'll try and get to as many questions as we can. Another question is, can you please explain why your policy to preference WA businesses in state government procurement is not in contravention of the Constitution?
The advice we've had is that it's not. It's around a procurement policy. So to give a weighting to a local business is not, my understanding is it's not in contravention of the competition policy, and Queensland have exactly that legislation in their parliament, and it has not been tested or taken to the High Court. So I believe that we can do this. I think it's the right thing. And part of the reason for that policy, I've got to say, is the state government have a big Metronet policy, including building rail cars here in Western Australia. Now, really great company, Fremantle Steel, are involved in pulling together the warehouse for that program. But the rail car project itself, for the actual rail cars, has gone to a French company called Alstom. Now, there's a company down in Henderson called Murdoch. All they do is make seats for ferries and trains. They've put 20,000 seats onto the Mandurah Railway. They went to the government to see if they could be part of the railcar program. The government said, go and speak to Alstom. And so Alstom changed the compliance criteria so that Murdoch could not even tender for the work. Now, they've put 20,000 seats onto the Mandurah Railway. There is no reason they cannot be producing the seats for the Metronet railcar project, except that Alstom don't want them in there because they've got their own provider. Those are the sorts of anomalous outcomes that we believe should not be occurring in Western Australia. We believe that if we've got a company that's been in operation here for 54 years, that is internationally competitive, has already provided to the PTA for the Mandurah the Mandurah Railway cars, that they should be part of the Metronet program. And the reality is they're not. So that's what our local jobs policy is designed to correct.
Our next question is, every state and territory in Australia has a net zero emissions target by 2050. Will the WA Liberals do the same if elected and commit to a net zero target across the WA economy?
Yeah, well, if elected to government, we will comply with the net zero emissions targets that the federal government have put in place. Absolutely.
Another question is, we're heading into a housing crisis not seen before in WA. How do you propose to ensure all West Australians have access to safe and affordable housing?
Yes, thank you for that. We'll be releasing our housing strategy in the near future. And I have to say, one of the most concerning issues that gets raised when we door knock is the rising homelessness and the rising levels of rough sleepers in Western Australia. And in this day and age, when we've got a nearly $2 billion budget surplus, it beggars belief that we have pregnant women sleeping in tents on the streets of Perth. It is a shame, a national shame that this is occurring. So the state government has sold off over 1,000 social houses and they've not been replaced. So part of the housing crisis is that the houses that people were living in have now been sold and redeveloped, and the housing stock's not been replaced. So we'll release our housing policy in the near future, and that will be, there'll be some collaboration with the not-for-profit sector around provision of housing and a more case-managed approach to public housing tenants, because, some of the tenants, particularly with mental health issues and substance abuse issues and family and domestic violence issues, need a supported, managed program. So we'll announce that in the very near future.
We have a couple of minutes remaining, so we'll try and get through a few more, or as many as we can. Next question is, does your party have a policy on the care economy? Well, the care economy is very much linked into our case management policy with respect to the homeless. So yes, you'll see those policies released around the same time. Another quick one. What is the WA Liberals' position on legalising e-cigarettes? The TGA are proposing a prescription-only model for 2021. Thousands of local retailers that sell cigarettes have been left out and strongly opposed.
That is one that I haven't really paid much attention to be perfectly honest with you. There was a parliamentary inquiry into e-cigarettes, and I'm not sure if that report of that inquiry has been tabled at this point in time. I'd be, from a health perspective, we're supportive of anything that moves people away from tobacco and cigarette smoking. And if e-cigarettes can be part of a program to get people away from cigarettes, we would be supportive of it. But I think the jury's still out as to the benefit of e-cigarettes in shifting people from from normal cigarettes. And I don't think there's been a proper health assessment of the impact of e-cigarettes. So it's one of those grey areas. I think we haven't made a decision on it. Thank you for raising it, though, and I'll bring it to the attention of Zach Kirkup, my Shadow for Health. If we need to push out a policy on that, we certainly will.
We've got one last question. I'm going to squeeze it in, even though we're sort of up against time, but that way everyone would have had their question asked and answered, which I think is a good result. Does the Liberal government not care about free trade agreements with partner countries? The commitment regarding local businesses and jobs will be in breach of those agreements.
No, not at all. Of course we care about free trade agreements with other countries. We're the country's biggest export state. Our commitment around government procurement and taxpayer-funded projects will have no impact on those free trade agreements. This is about government procurement for schools, for hospitals, for roads, for rail, having a local priority to local businesses. That's it. It's not going to impact on any free trade agreements.
So that wraps up our Q&A session. Before I conclude and do the votes of thanks, we've got the poll results. I don't know how many have voted. I only see the results, the percentages, so apologies for that. But the top category with 66% of the vote was job creation and growth. Second, at 22%, was how to deliver cheap and clean energy. Third, on 11% of the vote, was supercharging and supporting small business. And fourth, with not a single vote, regional development and the agriculture sector. So I hope there's no one from regional or the ag sector on this call. Maybe you need to vote for yourself next time. But some interesting results there. So thank you for everyone for your questions and taking part in the poll. We will be wrapping up shortly, so I'd firstly like to thank the Honourable Liza Harvey for her insights and information, and spending some of very scarce and valuable time with CEDA and its members this afternoon. So Liza, thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the audience for your time and participation in the discussion. While we can't see you and interact as we normally would, it's great to know that you're on the call, and it's great that you can submit your questions and have them answered. And I think as a host and a moderator for today, I can give myself a bit of a tick that we've got through every question that you've asked today. So thank you for your participation and involvement. I am informed that this session has been recorded and will soon be available on the CEDA website to rewatch and share. So feel free to do that. Of course, stay connected with CEDA. There's lots happening. You can stay connected with CEDA through all the usual channels: LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, YouTube, Facebook, and of course, the website. So again, Liza, thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it. Members in the audience, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you allocating time to spend with us. So I'll wrap that up. Have a good remainder of your Friday and have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Dave.